Well, hello everyone. This is John Barron with Poets and Quants. Welcome to Fridays with Sandy. That would be Sandy Kreisberg, the founder of
Hola, boys and girls.
Here he
Welcome.
is.
Happy Friday.
And we have with us to handicap Keith Garfield, who is currently working as an engineer at Lockheed Martin. He's 28 years of age. He had put in a stint at Raytheon before Lockheed, which he actually joined about a year ago. He has a 3.6 GPA from Brigham Young University in electrical engineering. He also has a master's in engineering from Arizona State University. And he is aiming for Harvard Business School, MIT Sloan, Darden, Tuck, and Yale School of Management. So what do we think of Keith?
Well, John, let's start with HBS. You know, I just learned something. Well, Keith, say hi. Say hi to the folks.
Hey, how you doing? Keith Garfield.
Okay, so pretend it's the first day of class and everybody has. We'll start with an interview question. This is a real Harvard event. It's the first day of class. They're going around. Stand up and introduce yourself in 25, 30 seconds.
My name's Keith. I come from the defense contracting world. I worked as an electrical engineer.
Your classmates want proper nouns because they like to network. They don't want to say I worked at a bank. They want to know what bank you worked at. So if they can hit you up for a job there or a recommendation. This is just general advice.
Okay, so I worked at Lockheed Martin on the F-35, and I worked at Raytheon Missile Systems, and I worked on the full development cycle of electrical engineering, from developing a component, modular design, and bringing that product to production.
And just to remind us again, where'd you go to school?
And I went to BYU.
With Brigham Young University.
Brigham Young University.
And you did a mission where?
I did a mission in Poland.
So that's worth mentioning. Your classmates would be interested in that a lot. Some of your classmates would be Polish.
Okay.
So they'd say, "Oh, I want to meet this guy."
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned your Polish language skills are pretty good.
Yeah, they're okay. I don't find a lot of Polish people to speak with here.
It's another reason to introduce yourself as having spent time in Poland.
Yeah.
All right. This is just general information for how to introduce yourself.
Okay.
It's often an interview question. But let's get back to the basics. What we got here is you're a straight guy, man. You're 28, which is a sweet spot age. You went to BYU. You got a 3.6 there. That's a fine GPA. Maybe a shade on the low side. 730 GMAT is totally fine. Don't take it again. You did a mission in Poland, which is great. In terms of that's an international experience that the school doesn't have access to as much as they might like to. Both Poland's an interesting country. It's on the border between the East and the West, so that's a real plus. And then you're working for some premier companies, Raytheon and Lockheed. Schools would really admire that. They don't get many. John, what do you know about engineers at HBS?
Well, obviously there are a lot of them are Indian, so it's to be a white male is a plus probably with an engineering background at a Fortune 500 company that's well known. The other thing that we haven't mentioned would be Keith's post-MBA goal, which is essentially to work in the industrial sector in a leadership development program, which is going to be appealing to a business school because they often have.
Okay, let's cut to the chase. Keith, what job do you want after business school? What would be a good first job for you?
So I'd like to go into an LDP. I don't have a business. A leadership development
Oh,
program.
LDP. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't have a business undergrad. So if I can add the 2 years of business school MBA and do some rotations in marketing, finance, operations at a company like Dow, Chevron, IBM, Intel, that's the goal.
It's entirely plausible, don't you think, John?
Absolutely. They would love that. So even your post MBA goal lines up.
I don't want to make, and the other schools you're interested in are MIT, Darden, Tuck, and Yale, and we've recommended in our pre-interview that you look at Ross on the theory that you're not a Yale guy, you're more of a Ross guy.
Okay.
Yeah, Yale goes for hippies and yuppies. Yeah. You think I'm wrong, John?
I don't know. I think it's a broader mix of people there these days than
hippies, yuppies, and do-gooders. And Keith, you're a do-gooder. You actually have a record of being a good do-gooder since you've been on missions and whatnot. But oddly to say, that's not the business school. They don't consider that. They consider that not their kind of do-gooder sometimes.
Yeah. Got to be a hippie do-gooder.
Yeah, their kind of do-gooders are helping people, having an impact on underserved people. And
what about Kellogg? What about Kellogg, Sandy? What do you think?
I think he'd enjoy it there. I don't want to oversimplify this. I don't want to peg you as being like a super straight LDS kind of guy, engineer. But I don't think that's Kellogg's type, but maybe that's a plus. Do you agree with that, John?
Yeah, no, I think you'd have a shot at Kellogg if you'd be interested in Kellogg and you're married, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kellogg would be a good place too for that.
Okay, let's deal with the elephant in the room.
Harvard?
Yeah. 362, white male, 730. Well, welcome to the Olympic-sized outer pool of Harvard Business School. And then there's a much smaller pool. There's like a much smaller pool inside Harvard Business School, which is what I'm saying is there's a lot of guys like you. So I'll give you my thinking, but you tell me, Keith. Suppose they said to you, we got a lot of guys with a 362 and a 730, but why should we take you?
I'd say what sets me apart is that I've actually worked on manufacturing, engineering, design, and development. So I've gone through a US-based company that's designed, produced, and sold their hardware in the United States.
Keith, what you said is almost too granular. What sets you apart is that you work for major engineering companies, and I believe that's rare. And you can bring an engineering, a Fortune 500, I'm assuming, engineering background to the school.
Yeah, and also spent a couple of years in Poland and traveled to many countries, so you have more of a global perspective.
And the Polish perspective. Yeah, the
Yes.
Polish thing is something that's a plus, and it might be something you would highlight on your essay.
Okay.
Well, here's both an interview question and a helpful couple of paragraphs for your essay. What was your takeaway from Poland? What did you gain? What did you experience? What was the value of your Polish immersion?
Yeah, so I'd say, from the cultural historical perspective, Poland isn't a country that you read about a lot in the history books. And so,
yeah, so it's always being invaded by other people, by its neighbors.
yeah, so I spent some time in the far east regions, about 20 miles from Belarus, or Belarus, I guess is what they call it. And so you have a lot of, you see all around the signs of old communism, and then also the sort of renewal from.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. You answer the question immediately.
So for me, the immediate impact for me was running an organization, and that I could make an impact in someone's life.
That's generic.
Culture change.
What was the takeaway from the Polish immersion?
The takeaway from the Polish immersion, I would just say that learning that the challenges and opportunities.
Tell your classmates 3 things about Poland.
So 3 things you might not know. It's a country that was impacted earlier from populism than many American countries. It's a country that has.
What did you just say?
I would say it's a country that was impacted earlier from populism. So the urban-rural divide is strong there. It's a company that withstood.
Okay, that's the way you say it. Okay, you go. Poland is a polarized country. There's an urban elite, and there still is I'm making this up, but you should give the accurate version of this.
Okay.
There's an urban elite, and there's a large part of the population, and then you have to define it. That is either by European EU standards, either less educated or less wealthy, or whatever the numbers are about how you describe a country, what the, gross product is. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know this jive, John. Help me out. How would you describe a country?
I would say that Poland is a country that's still in transition, which is kind of surprising. There are a number of people who still are in the old world, the world impacted by the communist rule of Poland. And then there's the modern Poland that's trying to get out from under.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good description of what's going on.
Okay, that's one. Name what are 2 other things? Like, what do they make? What, how do they import, export? Are they a country? Is Poland part of the EU?
Yes, they are part of the EU.
I mentioned that real early.
Okay.
I'm not beating you up here, man. I'm giving generic advice to our viewers about how to answer a large question. You really have to focus on basics first. You go, what I want my classmates to know, first of all, is Poland's location. It's critically important. It's located wherever it is on the Baltic Sea, between wherever, whatever the accurate version of this is, between Russia and Germany. And it's part of the EU, and it is a oil exporting country. I don't know if that's true, or just stuff like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
Can you do that?
Yeah,
with accuracy.
Yeah, so I would say Poland is it's situated in Central Europe, between Germany, Belarus, Ukraine, and the Czech Republic. It has a presence traditionally in mining, coal, and agriculture, with new industry development in finance, software, and consumer goods.
I give that a low pass. That doesn't do it for me. You haven't really hit on the things that make it typically Polish. I think the things are, what you did was identified its location. What you didn't do was point out why that's important.
Okay.
It's stuck between a lot of other countries. It frequently has been invaded. Does it have a warm water port, or oil, or things, that geographers, would say are the 5 most important things about a country?
Yeah. So yeah, it does have it has a port city up in the north, in Gdańsk, Gdynia, and Sopot, and that had a lot of historical importance because it was cut off from the sea during the partition of Poland. And so it's a country struggling with the transition from communism to Western liberalism.
We got all the food on, we got all the Rice Krispies on the table. You got to put it in a bowl, man.
Okay.
You should be able to, we're not going to do it now, but particularly because of the Polish connection, when you're interviewed by a business school, you're going to get some Poland questions. I don't know what they'll be, but the elements we're just talking about should be part of a smart answer.
Okay.
Nespa, Mr. Byrne?
Yes, agreed. So now what are Keith's odds at Harvard Business School?
It's a very, very interesting question. The 362, 730 white guy thing, that's a good beginning. And then the question is, does he bring any X factor to the table? And the answer is two X factors. One is that he comes out of his Lockheed Martin Raytheon experience, which I think is a distinguishing thing at Harvard and valuable, okay? And then the fact, well, we also discovered that, John, maybe you could tell us about the director of Harvard admissions, who it is and what his own faith background is.
Well, Chad Losey also graduated from Brigham Young. And more interestingly, perhaps, when he was at Harvard Business School, he did an internship in the office of President Kim Clark at BYU. So what's interesting about that is Kim Clark used to be the dean at the Harvard Business School. Then he became president of BYU. And Chad actually interned in his office in between his first and second year at Harvard Business School. So, I don't know if that gives Keith a little edge. I certainly know it won't hurt him.
No, I don't think it will.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Good.
And Harvard also has, more than any other school, a history of very successful Mormons, both as students and as faculty members. Craig Christensen, the late Craig Christensen, who is really, one of the biggest stars of the Harvard Business School faculty in the last half century.
Okay, time for a fun fact here that we went over in the preview. The 3 M's at Harvard, John, what does that stand? What did that use to?
Military and Mormon. So you get at least one of the 3 M's, Keith.
Say that a little slower.
McKinsey, military, and Mormon.
Right,
So
that used to be the joke about Harvard. There were 3 types of people. There were military, McKinsey, and Mormon, often overlapping, no doubt.
So what are his odds at Harvard? You give him 35%?
I'll tell him his odds, but I'll do something more valuable, and it's harder. Keith, what are you going to say? What are you going to write in your essay? The essay is, what else do you want us to know about?
I had 2 sort of approaches that I've been considering. The first approach is focusing sort of on like public service and saying, when I was young, I saw a problem in the community. I wrote to journalists, to elected officials. I didn't necessarily see anything. My parents, they dealt with
that essay is not off to a good start, or certainly your explanation of it isn't.
Okay.
What was it? John, you agree? Yes.
I don't know where he was going to go with it.
Yeah, I don't know where it was going. Yeah, you were not, this is another one of these important distinctions. You were not answering something, you were reenacting an experience. There's a big difference. And we'd be here a week before we got to your bar mitzvah, and then we still wouldn't know what the influences are.
Okay. The other one would be, I grew up near the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. I was inspired by the right stuff.
Yeah, okay, that's a good catchy.
I like that.
That's a catchy first paragraph. What's going to come after that?
And then I would say.
Okay, let me ask you right out flat. Name 3 influences that are important to you, personal or business.
So one I would say was like I say, the right stuff, the space program, Chuck Yeager, those people, and working on the F-35 was a goal for me. Another influence was my LDS mission, seeing that organizational behavior can change hearts and minds. And the last I would say is
that's a good answer. If you can deliver that, that is a good section of an essay.
And then the last I would say is there's a guy, he was Mitt Romney's business partner. His name's Edward Kennard, and he wrote a book. One of the things he talks about it is the United States has a unique position of having a high amount of engineers and MBAs, and that pairing together moves forward innovation more than just having engineers by themselves.
That's an interesting fact. What's it got to do with you?
Well, I would say that, I'm inspired as an engineer, that coupling my engineering with business.
Let me give you some real man-to-man advice here. In this process, you got to be more personal. You got to be dealing with how this impacts me, what the impact was on me. You're a guy who goes for the PowerPoint, not the personal.
Okay.
You deliver good PowerPoints, but you're competing with people who deliver good PowerPoints, but also can add personal experience and personal engagement to the process. And those are the people who might beat you out at HBS.
Okay.
I'm giving it to you straight, man. I know it's a tough message.
That's why I like the idea of growing up near the Air and Space Museum and being inspired by the right stuff and Chuck Yeager to choose your career in engineering and then choose your companies that you work for.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go through the odds here as a sign off. Standard stats, 3.6, 730, a plus in terms of employment, white male. I think your chances at Harvard are like 30%. I think your chances of being interviewed. I think your chances of being interviewed are like 35%, and then your chances of getting in total are maybe 20-25%.
Okay.
I think simply because Harvard's so selective. Okay, I think MIT would go for this in a big way.
Okay.
You're right up their alley.
And I think you're right. Keith would be very compelling at MIT Sloan.
Yeah, although it's also small and hard to get into.
Yes, no doubt about it. In some ways, it could even be harder to get into than Harvard, frankly.
That is true. Okay, Darden, Tuck, and Yale, you're strong at those places. I'm going to tell you what I tell everybody. You've got to convince them you really want to go.
Okay.
And the way you do that is, visit if it's possible, reach out to people, to do it. You've got to do a lobbying campaign. It's like,
okay,
getting into business school actually requires all the skills you learn at business school. It's kind of a flipped process. In order to get in, you have to be able to do the things they're supposed to be teaching you, like networking and schmoozing.
All right.
And then John suggested Ross. You want to tell us why, John?
Oh, I think it's a solid school. They'll love Keith. I think he would love it there. Great MBA firm, great people. and it will get you exactly what you want. You want to be in a leadership development program at an industrial company. That's just, it's a no-brainer.
Okay, good. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Thanks for putting up with this abuse. And
Great. Well, thanks for the insights.
Good. Have a good weekend, everybody. Shalom.
All right.
And Keith, good luck to you, and I'm sure we'll see you on one of these campuses fairly soon. This is John,
All right.
Poets and Quants. You've been watching Fridays with Sandy.